At that time, in my private practice, I had 2 offices. I started working with brands. I had 3 little kids, and I wanted to develop relationships with media that would be consistent. And that is exactly what happened. So I built my practice unknowingly starting with media. But then what happened was, once I got my name in the news and brands saw that I knew how to give quotes and sound bites that would sell, and that I knew how to talk to any audience that was out there, then brands started to work with me. So I stopped being a spokesperson for the Academy after 6 years, and that was when I started working with brands.
Well, hey there. Welcome to Media Savvy, the podcast that gives you a behind-the-scenes look at what it takes to get noticed by media and become the go-to expert that they keep coming back to. I'll be sitting down with successful writers, producers, and entrepreneurs to learn the tools and tactics they use to build their reputation and in turn boost their business. I'm your host, Bonnie Taub-Dix, and I've been working with top-tier media outlets for more than 30 years, anywhere from traditional print publications to online and social platforms. And I'm sharing my nutrition guidance without gimmicks. But you don't have to be a dietitian for this podcast to speak to you. Through my one-to-one conversations, you'll learn how to build a strategy to get your name in the news and establish yourself as an authority in your field, no matter what the industry. With Media Savvy, I'm on a mission to inspire, motivate, and empower you to have the confidence and tools you need to shine in the spotlight. Are you ready? Let's get Media Savvy.
Well, hi there. I'm Bonnie Taub-Dix, and I want to welcome you to another episode of my Media Savvy podcast. And I'm really so excited that you're here today because today's a little different for me. It's actually my first solo podcast that I'm doing with you. And I have so much to tell you that I didn't even know where to begin. So let's start with a little bit about me because I have been around for a long time in this field, and I thought it would be good for you to hear how I started out, because so many people who listen to my presentations, they all say like, but I have a full-time job. How am I ever going to work with media? I know what that's like. I've been where you were, and it just seemed to all seamlessly mesh together. So let me tell you where I came from in this field, and maybe that will help you. So I took a very unexpected route in terms of working with media. I grew up overweight. I had a really bad self-image, and I really wanted to change that image before I went away to college. So I went on a diet. It actually was a really good diet. I never used to eat vegetables or anything like that. I really had a balanced diet. I wound up losing almost 30 pounds, and it literally changed my life in so many ways. So when I went to college, I was going to be majoring in psychology, minoring in art. I like to paint. I like to draw. This painting in the background, if you could see it and you're on YouTube, is a painting that I did. And I just thought that those majors would really be suited for me. But somebody in front of the room had a piece of paper at orientation and said, anyone interested in dietetics? And I didn't even know what dietetics was. I'd never heard of it before, but I was just on that diet, just lost weight, felt really good about myself. So I raised my hand. I signed a paper. Next thing I knew, I was called for an interview at Downstate Medical Center, and they accepted me to their program of nutrition and dietetics. Switched schools, changed my major, and the rest is kind of history. I never wanted to work in a hospital because I hate the sight of blood, and I hate just being in hospitals. But I wound up working in hospitals for 11 years, and that is where I built my private practice, because when the doctors would read my notes, they would say, oh, I have a few patients that I'd want to send your way, and that built my private practice. But what also happened to me while I was working at the hospital, I was an assistant chief dietitian at a New York City hospital, is I became very friendly with someone who worked in the PR department. And she asked me if I would film a commercial for the hospital, just a 1-minute commercial about how to eat healthfully over the holidays. So I memorized a minute's worth of nutrition information. I got all dressed up. And I did this commercial, and they loved it. And then they asked if I would do more commercials for them. And then one day a national TV show came to them and said, we need someone who could go into the supermarket and talk about food labels. Of course, they knew by that point that I wasn't shy in front of the camera. So they asked me to do the story. And little did I know, that was 30 something years ago. Little did I know that I would actually someday wind up writing a book about food labels and supermarket shopping. And if you don't know, my book is called Read It Before You Eat It, Taking You from Label to Table. And if you go on my website, which is betterthandieting.com, you'll see that there's a link for the book. If you just click that link and sign up, you will get a free chapter of my book. It's my favorite chapter. This is not a sales pitch. You don't have to do this, but it is my favorite chapter. That's called Tricky Terms. And it's all about the terms that are on the label that are there to fool you in some respects, but you will not be fooled after you read this chapter. Anyway, so I went along my merry way working at a hospital and seeing patients after work till it became just too much for me. It was like a full-time job working in the hospital and a full-time job seeing private patients. So slowly, once a week, I would take a vacation day just to see patients. And then I wound up needing to leave that job, which I loved, just because my workload became too great. But around that same time, I remember that in those days, I know this is going to date me, but there was no internet. There was not even any cell phones, if you could believe that that was possible. Gleefully, no social media. But I reached out to a reporter for Newsday because she was a food editor and I loved her stories. And I just told her that I loved her pieces and that if she ever needed any quotes, please feel free to call me. So she wound up calling me time after time. Then she wound up becoming a patient of mine in private practice. And one day she said to me, Newsday is starting this new column and I think you will love it. And it was all about food and exercise. And I was so happy because I thought that she would then start quoting me. And instead she said to me, oh, by the way, I didn't tell you, it's your column. So I had my own column in Newsday, which I was so excited about. She gave me an interesting tip at that point. She said, just write for a fourth grade audience. And I thought that she was being kind of condescending for her audience, but I know what she meant. She really meant just write in the language that your audience will understand. Don't try to write over them. Don't try to be too sciencey. Just write very simply for them. And it really worked out beautifully. Just so that you know, in terms of cost, because a lot of people ask me about money when it comes to working with media. In those days, I got paid $50 per column. And I wrote a column every other week. So that was like not really a lot of money, for writing a column, especially because it really kept me up nights because I would be thinking of all these different ideas to write about. But here's what I did to boost that volume. I made copies of those columns and on the side, I would put my name and my phone number and my logo, and I would make hundreds of copies of my stories whenever they come out. And I would drop them off at a local gym. I would drop them off at local doctors' offices. And the doctors loved it because these articles were in their waiting rooms and patients would get nutrition education right at their fingertips. And they loved it because they wanted to refer patients to me. So it really helped me build my practice. So even though I only got $50 per column, literally I got hundreds and hundreds of dollars from seeing these patients. Around the same time, I also became a spokesperson for the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics. And I loved being a spokesperson because I didn't have to go out and find media placements. They sent all the placements my way. And there was a reporter for USA Today who used to interview me all the time. And if you had to put a full page ad in USA Today, I looked it up recently. I think it was $150,000 per full page ad. And they used to put my picture, full page, about my book, quotes from me, about me and my philosophy about eating. And I didn't get paid anything for these stories, but I consider this to be a part of my marketing budget because I wouldn't even have a marketing budget big enough to put my name in the news like that week after week in USA Today, which is actually an international newspaper. It's not just national. So one day, the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics came to me and they said, would you write a blog for us because we're looking to start a blog? Well, I said, sure, I'd be happy to, but what is a blog anyway? Because in those days, hardly anybody was writing blogs. So I looked up what a blog was. The title of the first blog for them was How to Write a Blog and Why You Should Be Writing One. And that was my first blog. Well, then USA Today said that they wanted to start a blog and they wanted to know if I would blog for them. I was a great blogger at that point, writing only one blog so far, and I became a blogger for USA Today. At that time, in my private practice, I had 2 offices. I started working with brands. I had 3 little kids, and I wanted to develop relationships with media that would be consistent. And that is exactly what happened. So I built my practice unknowingly starting with media. But then what happened was, once I got my name in the news and brands saw that I knew how to give quotes and sound bites that would sell, and that I knew how to talk to any audience that was out there, then brands started to work with me. So I stopped being a spokesperson for the Academy after 6 years. And that was when I started working with brands. And that brought me to the point of consulting with global companies, helping them with so many different things. So in working with media and working with brands, there is so much that you could do. I write articles for them, whether it's for their website or for mine. I do recipe development for brands. I do satellite media tours. And if you don't know what a satellite media tour is, it is the most exhilarating, the most exciting, the most stressful, and the most profitable thing you probably could do with a brand. What is it? It is where you stand literally in the same place for around 5 hours straight, usually starting at some ungodly hour because you have to get there at like 5:30 or so to get your hair done and makeup done. And then you're doing one interview after another. Each interview is usually around 3 minutes, could be 5 minutes. If it's any radio, then those are usually around 9 or so minutes. But you literally are standing there for 5 hours doing around 30 interviews. In fact, one SMT, they call it SMT, satellite media tour that I did, we did 40 interviews in one day. And the crazy thing about this, when you're working with media and you're doing one of these tours, is that you're looking straight ahead at the camera. The hardest part all day is to smile so much. And you never even get to see the people who you're talking to. You're just looking ahead, and on the camera, it says, Gloria from Chicago, and that is all you know. And I have to say, hi, Gloria, how are you? So nice to see you. I have no idea what Gloria looks like, no idea when it's going to air, but I do this interview with her back and forth, and it is always so exciting. I just love doing satellite media tours. So some of the other things that I do is sometimes I do behind the scenes consulting with companies because I have a lot of experience with working with consumers, with working with RDs, and which is registered dietitians, and with working with food companies and my private patients that I see. So they like my opinion on how to launch a product, what could be better about their products, how to put the best food forward in terms of what their product has and what people are looking for. So I really enjoy working like that with brands too. I also do a lot of this work on my own because I receive so many samples from companies in the mail, and sometimes I receive something that I really do like. So I try to get this across in media to my clients. Some of the other things that I do is I consult for top tier magazines. And I do several interviews a week. Reporters know me after all these years. They know me. They know that when they send me questions, that I will give them back answers in the form of sound bites. So literally, they just need to copy and paste what I send to them and weave that into their stories. And when I teach people in my media training course about responding to reporters, if a reporter calls you and they say, my deadline is next Friday, if you wait till next Thursday or Friday to get to them, there's a really good chance that your name won't make it to the story, unless they're only relying on you. Sometimes that does happen with me, where a reporter will say, okay, we're only asking you, so you have until next Thursday to get to me. That's fine. But if a reporter doesn't tell me that, then what I do is if they say my deadline is next Thursday, I literally try to get them the answers today or tomorrow. Because if you get in your answers early, then there's a much greater chance that your name will be in that story. I know when I'm writing my own media stories, if I put out a query to other people and I say my deadline is next week, and let's just say I have time this week to write the story, then whoever gets me the information first, if they give me good quotes, then I'm not going to wait till next week to put the story together. So the people who are late at sending their answers in may actually never make it to my story. So whether I'm on the side of getting quoted by media or being media, it's really important to never meet a reporter's deadline. You should be beating the reporter's deadline. I still do, just so you know a little bit more about me, I still do have my private practice where I counsel patients. Some of the patients I have been seeing for 20-something years. I'm not exaggerating, and it's not as if they're not doing well, but I think that my job as a nutritionist has morphed into more of a life coach, where they talk to me about things that are going on in their lives, whether it relates to what they're eating or not. But ultimately, it always comes down to eating in a respect where we sometimes eat out of boredom or out of hunger or out of excitement. So there's so many things to talk about when it comes to food. So I think that I have really become much more of a life coach for them. I also have 2 newsletters. One newsletter is for the public. And the reason why, if you are in media or interested in working with media, this newsletter is really good for you is because I always post the stories that I'm quoted in. And why this is so important for you is because you get to see what these top tier publications are looking for. What kind of titles did they use in their stories? What were their stories about? And if you see what their story was about and you have something to say that is similar, but not the same, you could contact the reporter and make a pitch for your own story. So that newsletter is called betterthandieting.com. And you could find a link in the show notes to that newsletter. Or you could find it on my website, which again is betterthandieting.com. Same as the newsletter. I also have another newsletter that is called BTD Media Makers. And where you come in with this newsletter is that these are some of my best tips and hacks for how to work with media, how to get your name in the news. If you do get contacted by a reporter, how to keep them coming back to you over and over and over again. What to wear, what to dress like if you're doing an interview. And you know what? I really should tell you how all of this started in terms of my media business. What happened was a few people that I know who have huge social media followings came to me and they said, you know, we have an interview with a magazine or I have a TV opportunity and I don't know what to say. I don't know what to do. I don't know how to squash my nervousness. I don't know what to do if I'm asked a difficult question. What do I wear? Where do I look when the camera's on me? So many questions they had. So I helped a few of them do these interviews, and they were shocked at how just one interview brought thousands of people to their website when they were on TV, as opposed to posting something on Instagram where it could take forever for people to actually respond to you. And that's even hard to track as well. So a few of them said to me, why don't you start a media consulting business? And I know that I have always loved doing my business in media and working with media, but I didn't think about teaching other people actually as a business. So that was how I started my BTD Media business. You'll find me on Instagram at BTD Media, and that's where you'll find lots of tips. But I also developed a digital course called How to Work with Media and Make the Media Work for You. And in this course, it is literally something that you can just do at your own pace. You could skip ahead to any section that speaks out to you. It comes with bonuses, including a workbook. And it's not a workbook just to keep you busy. I really don't like those courses where they give you these thick workbooks and you have to fill out all of this stuff. I wouldn't like it myself. So I would only do for you what I would want to help myself. So it's a workbook where it really makes you think about what your talents are, what your strengths are. It helps you with crushing imposter syndrome. It has so much good information in there. So that's a bonus that you get when you sign up for the course. And also it comes with a primer on my favorite audio, video equipment and prices and where you can buy them. It also has a bonus on makeup for media because I love to put on makeup. If you heard other podcasts of mine, you'll know that I like to paint and draw. So I actually love putting on makeup. So it's all my favorite makeup for media, the prices, where you can buy them. I also have another bonus on pitching, how to pitch to media. And if you sign up for my course and you get in touch with me and let me know that you found the course through this podcast, then I will put you in a raffle to win a free consultation with me, a 1 hour consultation with me. And I don't want to say that it's priceless, but I think that you'll get a lot of good information there. So you could always sign up for my course. But basically what I'm trying to say about working with media is that I never really had any great goals or strive to become a celebrity or get my face on TV or see my face in a news story or see my byline on an article in a magazine. But I have to tell you that it is super exciting when those things happen to you and when you realize that it's like a ripple in the water. I didn't do any of this for fame. It's not just for ego. This is something that I did just very naturally because I wanted to get messages out to the masses. There are too many people out there that call themselves influencers that have popularity based upon their numbers on their website, on their social media platforms, instead of being based upon credibility. And it is really scary to see some of the information that these people are giving out. But unfortunately, these days, a lot of brands are hiring these influencers because they have big followings. Even though it probably is difficult to track whether their information is actually making people go out and buy the products that they're pitching. And lots of times they don't even disclose that they're working with the brands, but they're just not credible. And it is just sad that they're out there because they are talented. They know how to give an interview. They look good on the screen. They make it seem as if their life is so perfect, yet their information is probably curated. They may have teams behind them that are helping them with every post that they do. It's not natural. And you may be thinking, oh, I look like every behind the scenes post as opposed to really being like the polished post. But believe me, this is not necessarily credible information. So you should be out there and not worry about how you look, how you sound. You have the knowledge, you have the expertise. You just need the guts to go out there and do it. And if I can help you in any way, please reach out to me. I would love to know what else you would like to hear about in this podcast. I would like to talk about anything that you would like to hear. So if you'd like to hear more about how to dress for success, if you'd like to hear more about creating sound bites, if you'd like to hear about how to get away from difficult questions in interviews, please let me know. I would be happy to tell you. So I think I'll probably just sign off for now. But before I go, I hope that you'll subscribe to this podcast. I hope that you will write a comment. And I truly hope that you will reach out on social media. My handle is at BTD Media. My other handle is at Bonnie Taub-Dix, my name. I don't care where you write to me. You could write in the comments of the post. You could DM me. You could send me an email. All of that information is on there. But I really welcome your thoughts. I really appreciate you being here. And I am here for you. Please don't forget that. And have a media savvy day. Thank you so much.